Okay, so this video is actually not gonna be just a dual review, and it's also not gonna be just a discussion video, because I actually plan to do both separately, but I thought both actually fit so well together that I will just combine them both in two. And since I don't want to structure these kind of videos because I like to rather let my thoughts go round and round and all about, I thought I would just make it out of my head and we will see just what happens. Therefore it will be a little bit of a rambling, but I think that makes things just a little bit more casual, actually maybe easier to watch, even though maybe a little bit more chaotic. The thing that I want to discuss though today is the 3.5mm jack on mobile phones, and pretty much just about on phones, because many people have a problem with it being away, and there are different kinds of people who have different kind of standpoints. Some say it should be gone because they either use Bluetooth or something like that by now and they don't really care. And then there are other ones that just say we need it because it's just so much more convenient. And I kind of agree with both, and that's why I'm actually in the middle for a specific reason on my own. Because why I'm okay with Bluetooth is that I personally, if I'm somewhere out, if I would listen to music on the go, I use usually Bluetooth, but actually not over the device itself, because I don't like the wire tangling, and that's why I don't really have a problem with the headphone jack being gone, because I don't like to use my phone when there is a cable attached to it. So what I usually do is I use a Bluetooth adapter, which actually also most often has a better sound than the typical Bluetooth devices itself. And this solution gives me the chance to use the phone without wires but still have better sound. Of course, I'm not gonna deny the fact that it is still better to have something like the 3.5mm jack. And even if you don't use it, you still have the option to at any point, and if you forget your dongle or something, you are still good to go. So I completely agree with that. But that's actually not my issue why I have no problem with it being gone, at least on many flagship. It's just the quality. Because I definitely don't want to call myself an audiophile, because what I actually in some way are, because audiophile doesn't mean anything more than someone who loves to listen to audio or music. And of course, due to the kind of people that take it to extremes, it's a little bit of a term that people like to listen or to hear so many times. So let's just say I love music. I love to listen to music in the best possible quality. And this is also one thing that leads already to it. I usually don't listen outside on something very big like a headphone. I usually stick with in-ears in case I use them, because I just don't like to have something big on me. And then a headphone jack, a typical one, is usually fine enough. But if I want to actually properly listen to music, and especially at home, and I don't want to be tied to my PC, and usually I don't have anything with better quality at hand, then I want to use proper headphones. But with pretty much no phone, maybe besides the V30 that I didn't review yet, I'm still thinking about if I will do, I can't just drive proper headphones the way I want them to. And here I have to say, maybe actually also a little bit of a fun fact, that I listen extremely loud, and this is something that you should keep in mind for a little bit later on when I will talk about these devices, because I listen extremely loud, actually so loud that on the Northern German hi-fi days, after about 10 minutes in the stacks room, they let's say asked me to make a pause for 10 minutes because I listened so loud on their LX700 that people got disturbed by it, so they got bothered. And then yeah, so I listened too loud, and the man actually said that if I'm crazy if I listen too loud, but that's just the way I listen to that. So I listen, I guess, way louder than most people. I had this already, something that I've talked in a lot of other videos about it. So if I say something is not loud enough for me, I would still say like 90% of every other one is fine. I know that there are a few people that still agree with me and say a specific device that I said are not loud enough, weren't loud enough for them either, where others say it's more than fine. So this is just about that. And then I have to just say the 3.5mm jack, just because it's not usually loud enough for me, then doesn't bother me if it's gone. And this is where actually the two devices that I want to review today come in. The Ultrasone Naos and the Calyx PaT. This one is around $100, and this one, at least in euros, is 170 euros. So I guess maybe $170 as well. What these are DACs, and also with a little bit amperages going on, but I can already tell you so much about it. If it's just about the fact that you want a significantly better output from the 3.5mm jack, these both are that. Because I've compared them with many phones that I had here, and they beat them all clearly. But I have to still say that it's not quite what I want, and therefore, if portable, I would actually maybe go for something like the IDSD black label, but that's completely something different. So let's actually quickly check what we get with either one, just so we get a clear picture. And this is something that I will actually review on its own. So this is just something that I want to get into for all the extremes. So Ultrasone Naos, you get this carrying case where you can store the cables, because as you can see, this thing is super tiny. And how tiny is that this will be seen once we compare it with the Calyx Pad, because let's see, this is almost like a third of the size. Definitely noticeably smaller than half of it. So just keep that in mind. Both use the micro USB port and the headphone jack on the other side, but I'll get into that a little bit later. Now, the Ultrasone Naos, you get it with these 4 cables, and with these 4 cables you are pretty much good to go with every possible device. Of course, all of them have micro USB on one end, and this one has USB Type A. So this means you can use it with any laptop or on your PC to improve the sound if your onboard sound maybe isn't good. Then we have micro USB and USB Type C to use it with most kind of modern phones. Once again, micro USB and Lightning, so it works with the iPhones and such. And then we have micro USB to micro USB for the older phones. So I'm not quite sure, but I think with these ones, once stored up, you are good to go in every single device that is used to. This is just a typical dongle that you usually get, which in the case of Xiaomi phones actually is quite good, but still not on this level. Now on the Calyx Pad, what you get is, as you can see here, also controlled. These only work though with an Apple device, because I've tried it and nothing, not even the volume or so changes with Android. As you can see, it's definitely noticeably thicker in all dimensions, or bigger in general. So if it's just about the size, just keep that in mind. Other than that, you get just 2 cables in this case, 2 times micro USB, and on the other side you get USB Type A for your PC and micro USB for your older phones. Now you might say that's a bummer because most phones use USB Type C. I know that you can, because I've tried it. You can just use, where is it? This one. No, it is this. You can just use this cable, because I had used the one from the Naos on the Calyx Pad, and USB Type C worked without any issues. So this one you can get for, I would say, a few bucks, and you are good to go, because I don't think most people will need 4 of these. So of course you get way less in terms of accessories here, because you get here the case and the cables, which makes up for a little bit of the price difference here. But still, you could just buy 1 cable, or if you maybe need 2, and you are still cheaper with the $100 compared to the, I'm not quite so sure, because this is 120 euros from where I got it from to review, and this is 170 euros. So the difference is like 50 euros. I'm not quite so sure about the dollars. And that was already pretty much it in terms of what you get in accessories. Now, what about the actual changes it does? Like I said, both of these definitely will blow the headphone jack out of proportions of every phone that you can pretty much get. Like I said, I can't judge any of the V20 or V30 device from LG, which is supposed to be very good, but I've tried it with a OnePlus 5G, way better. I've tried it with a Xiaomi device, noticeably better still, because those are actually already quite loud. Of course, they don't have quite the dynamic and the power and so on, but I'll get into that. But if you just want to use it with your mobile phone, definitely better. A significant improvement. And I would say if you just spend like $100, and this is actually the good thing, because the problem is whenever you change your phone, you still don't know every time if you have a good headphone jack. And for example, some people always ask or always tell me that it's very important to have a good headphone jack. Now, if that's the issue of that phone that you really want, now you would be kind of screwed. Or if it maybe doesn't have a headphone jack at all, or maybe if you don't want to use the dongle, or actually if you already have to use a dongle. If your phone already comes with a dongle, I don't think it's a big issue to replace this dongle with this one. Yes, I know this one is noticeably bigger, but it is also noticeably better. And I think 100 for having a steady solution, which you can use also on your laptop if you want to, or on your tablet, or on any phone in the future. So this is a one-time purchase, but then you have the same consistent quality for a longer period of time. And this is kind of a one-time purchase that you can use for every time. And then you don't really have to bother about the quality of your phone. And I think that definitely is a big difference. I can tell you already that much though. In case you wanted even more, then there is something like the IDC, because this is a proper headphone amp, also with battery and so on, which is actually fully powered. Because what these both are, they are powered by the USB port. And the Naos, since it is so small, actually gets noticeably warm. And sometimes I didn't burn my hand, but I was a little bit surprised when I touched it because it got quite warm. The Calyx Pad did not. Now, how do these two, which are the closest ones that I have for comparison, differ? I can tell you so much. The Naos is about 1 or 2 clicks, but I would say usually like 1 click on an Android device louder. And I can tell you that around roughly, and that's the thing, I can't really say it can drive all 50 ohm cans, because for example I have my MT5 which are 51 ohm and it can drive them with some reserves, but for example my Monolith M1060s it can't drive. Same also goes for the Calyx Pad, which like I said is a little bit lower in terms of volume. So in case you want the best possible volume between these two, the Naos is better. This one, like I said, it's less. And I would personally say all 32 ohm cans, like the more average things, like for example also I tried the AKG K550, I tried a few gaming headsets and so on, and both can drive them properly. And this is just about the maximum volume actually, because like I said, I listen very loud, and these could drive normal cans quite good, and as I should maybe try for example a 250 ohm or 300 ohm, then they both won't do it, at least not for me. For a few people that actually don't listen that loud, it could be good enough, but for everyone who wants to listen louder, then it's not good enough. But like I said, I'm crazy in that regard, and that's why I personally, if it's just about the volume and if I don't want to use some really, let's say, demanding cans, would be better off with the Naos. But it's not just about the maximum volume, it's about the actual quality. And I don't want to drag this too far, just in terms of roughly a perspective how they sound. The Naos, for me, seems a little bit more dynamic, and definitely noticeably more dynamic than any headphone jack that you usually get on a phone. So you definitely feel that there is some power behind it. Music gets more lively, the highs get clearer, the soundstage opens up a little bit, and it does actually tend to be a little bit warmer, but it's also very clear. I'm not really talking about clean, but clear. So it's quite a nice open, slightly more open sounds, definitely compared to a headphone jack, because I definitely noticed that things opened up and just things got clearer, just in a more pleasant way. So you definitely notice a significant step up in terms of just quality, not just in terms of power that you can drive it, because it just makes music feel better. Now the Calyx isn't quite as maybe powerful. You'd feel that it's just not that much power behind it, so not quite as dynamic, but it is a little bit more neutral. It's not kind of warm, it's definitely more on the just more accurate side, but therefore it could for some people sound a little bit more boring. But what I have to also say is what I've noticed on the Naos, and at first I actually wasn't sure if it's maybe a fault, but songs sounded, especially with a lower, very deep bass, like they would distort, and I thought something is maybe wrong with it, but I noticed actually properly or more detailedly checking that those kind of distortions were always there in the songs, but I never really, I mean I heard them, but I thought it was just part of the song because they felt so still fitting. But with the Naos, these distortions kind of seem a little bit boosted or extended, maybe because of the extended or more elevated bass that it comes with, and therefore those cracklings or kind of sounds that just don't seem like the music is so clear were a little bit more distracting, where this one just doesn't have it. If you listen a little bit with less volume, so I would say roughly with the same volume as on the Calyx Pad on its maximum volume, this, let's say distortion is a little bit less audible, but it's still more audible than on the Calyx. So I would say overall the Calyx is not quite as loud, it's a little bit more neutral, it's not quite as dynamic, it just doesn't have quite the power behind it, but it feels more, I would say, natural. In case you want that, it feels like it has less issues, because the Naos actually sounds like it would actually improve the sound or have like a loudness function where things just feel a little bit more dynamic, a little bit clearer, a little bit more open. And I'm just talking about minor differences. You wouldn't really notice if you have one on one day and the next one on the other days, unless you really know all your music pretty much out of your head, with you know every single note, you know all your headphones, you wouldn't really notice. But if you have them side by side, you definitely notice the improvement. And this is also where something like the IDSD comes in, because with something like that I will review, you can drive all cans and even the more demanding ones without ease, and you then will get even way more of a better sound. Way more of a better sound, a way better sound, because then things just get even more dynamic. It just sounds even cleaner, way more open, and this is something that you will notice. But of course, something like this costs 500, and that's why it's not quite so fair anymore. And let's just talk about the value. Now, like I said, 50 euros difference. Now, if you don't need a maximum volume, you get a very good device, but it's noticeably bigger, and you don't get quite the cables. So this kind of gets them closer in terms of the value. But I also have to say that this one sometimes, especially if you listen very loud with a lot of bass, deep bass tracks, the distortions got a little bit annoying. Now, I'm still not quite sure if it's maybe a fault or not, but since the distortions are always there on all those devices, those sounds that I'm talking about, and this was more dominant here, I don't think it's actually an issue. It's just because more of the emphasized bass. But I also have to say that this one is just smaller. And the price though, the thing is though, this is $99, and I think $99 is kind of a not quite spontaneous purchase, but this is something where you could say, okay, it's $100 and I improve my sound on every device and I'm set with this for a longer period of time. With $170, I'm not quite sure if that's the price, because I couldn't really find it. Things look a little bit more different, because that's already a price range where you could think about just buying a dedicated MP3 player, or there are different alternatives. I think AudioQuest has the AudioFly or something like that, also DAC available and so on. This is just not quite the, I don't have to think about it, purchase. You will think a little bit more about 170 euros. And this one feels like you could spend it a little bit easier. But in the end, just to kind of sum this up, better than any normal phone, better than a OnePlus, better than any Samsung phone, Sony phone. And I'm not just talking about maximum output, which they are noticeably better, because with something like OnePlus 5T, I can't nearly drive the cans that I can drive with these, and also not with the clarity, this dynamic, this openness, this you just really feel that there is more power behind the actual sound. And therefore, sound just sounds better. It's also cleaner since you have a higher volume, and if you don't want to listen to it that loud, you just have a lower noise floor. And this is where it does the flag. And this is for everyone who takes it really seriously, or maybe gets something more expensive. But the review was still, or let's say the half review, what this video was about these two. Personally, like I said, I wouldn't go for either one, just because this is not something that I really need. I need something that if I want to be portable, or let's say here in my house and want to listen to cans, to proper headphones, and I need just way more power. Outside, like I said, I listen to Bluetooth or with a Bluetooth adapter, and that's why I personally don't have a need for that. Then I think both wouldn't quite do it for me because of the maximum volume and my insanity with high volume. But the Naos, so if I could just choose, money wouldn't concern me, and if I would have the option to get either one for free, I would just take the Naos, because it's louder, which was important for me, and it sounds a little bit better. You get a little bit more accessories. But if I would have to pay for that, chances are higher that I would just go for this, because the little bit less volume that I get with that doesn't really break it or make it, because with this one I could also drive a little bit more demanding in-ears, like for example the iSign 10 from Odyssey, absolutely without a problem. And for most people the difference in volume won't be the deciding factor, and then you just save money here. If any of these small DACs could properly deliver that, I don't know, but I kinda doubt it, just because there is a limitation, because this one, with being so tiny, already got quite warm. This one doesn't, because it's bigger. So instead of just having something like this, and I've tried dongles from HTC, from Xiaomi, from the iPhone, from I don't know which brands as well. Yeah, definitely a big step up. If it's big enough for you, if it's reasonable enough for you to pay 100 for that, I don't know. Maybe you are good. Let me actually know in the comments, are you good with the headphone jack of your phone? Because I know many people, when I say it's not good enough for me, tell me it's loud enough and I have a problem. Or tell me if you use Bluetooth for whatever reason. Or if you go actually, and I know there are a lot of people who go outside portable with kind of things like these, or proper dedicated MP3 players, or maybe even more so sophisticated DACs, bigger than this one or more expensive like this one. I know they are, so let me just know what you are, what you think, and if you maybe think something like this is helpful for you, or if you have something like that, if you are happy with that, or if you think this is just wasted money. That would be quite interesting to know. And that was the part of the discussion, or the discussion part of this video. But other than that, that's it. Okay, on the next time.